Imagine waking up one morning, you reach for your phone, and you realize your main social media apps, the ones for news, family chats, maybe even running your business, are just gone, blocked. That's not just a hypothetical for millions, it's the reality unfolding right now in Nepal. Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we sift through stacks of information, cut through the noise, and really pull out those crucial nuggets of knowledge for you. Today, we're diving deep into Nepal's really significant decision to ban unregistered social media platforms. We're going to explore not just what happened, but the surprisingly complex legal stuff behind it, why the government's doing this, the immediate impacts on people's lives, and even how it might backfire on the government itself. It's a fascinating look at this whole evolving landscape of digital sovereignty and freedom of expression. We've gathered some really insightful sources for this: news reports, court documents, analyses of the motives, and the potential fallout. Okay, let's unpack this.
What's really striking here is that this isn't some sudden move out of the blue. The Nepalese government, they've been working towards this for a while, mandating registration, trying to get directives in place. It's been on the agenda.
Right, so this idea isn't brand new. When did this current push really gain teeth?
Well, the latest version of the mandate, the one really causing the stir now, comes from Clause 3 of these 15-point directives. They were actually issued back in November 2023.
Okay, November 23.
Yeah, under the previous administration, Pushpakamal Dahal's. And it flat out says any platform operating in Nepal needs to register with the Ministry of Communications and IT. But the real power behind it now, that comes from the courts.
The Supreme Court's involvement. Because government directives are one thing, but court rulings, that adds a whole different level of weight, doesn't it?
Exactly. The Supreme Court has kind of consistently backed the government's position. It's given them a pretty solid legal foundation for what they're doing now. There was that 30-day registration call back in March, citing these directives.
But wasn't there one specific verdict that really cemented things? The one where the full text just came out?
Absolutely. That's the real game changer. The full text of a Supreme Court verdict from September last year, but it was only publicly issued on August 16th of this year.
Okay, so quite recently then.
Very recently. And it explicitly ruled that social media platforms must be mandatorily registered. And not just registered, but also monitored and supervised by a competent authority. It even called for accountability, discouraging fake accounts, that sort of thing.
Wow, okay, that sounds incredibly direct. What exactly did the court tell the government to do?
The language was pretty clear. It said online and social media platforms of domestic or foreign origin should be mandatorily registered before operation, and mechanisms should be in place to evaluate and monitor undesirable content.
And this wasn't just a regular bench deciding this?
No, that's another key point. It came from a rare 9-member bench of the top court. The Chief Justice, 7 other senior justices. It signals a really strong judicial consensus on this.
So why such a firm stance from the court? What was their rationale for basically ordering the government to regulate?
Their reasoning focused on how fast information spreads now, especially online. They argued that without rules, false news just flies around, and that harms people's right to accurate info. It can mess with court cases, and it just erodes public trust.
Makes sense.
So the verdict literally told the government to make appropriate legal arrangements immediately for proper oversight. This isn't just the government wanting to do this. The court directed them.
And we're seeing that directive being acted on right now quite aggressively.
We are. The ministry used this exact verdict for that 7-day registration ultimatum they issued on August 27th. Register or face shutdowns.
Right.
And even more recently, just last Wednesday, I think, a division bench opened the door to stopping unauthorized broadcasts through OTT platforms, streaming services, and YouTube, other browsers too, especially targeting platforms showing foreign ads. So the legal framework isn't just there, it's being actively used.
Okay, so the legal side is, surprisingly solid, perhaps. But what's really driving the government here? Because these things are never just about one single issue, are they? What are the different layers behind this decision?
You're absolutely right. It's definitely multi-layered. I think the first, maybe most obvious driver is just regulation and control. Plain and simple.
Bringing them under Nepalese law.
Exactly. Mandate local registration, bring these global giants under Nepalese jurisdiction. That way they can try to hold them accountable for harmful stuff, hate speech, scams, misinformation, online gambling, you name it.
And does that potentially include getting user data?
Potentially, yes. It could open the door to requiring platforms to cooperate more with law enforcement, share user data when requested. It gives the government much more oversight than they have now.
And I bet money plays a role too, tax revenue.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
huge factor. Tax revenue, think about it. These big social media companies make a ton of money from advertising in Nepal. But right now, most of that revenue flows out of the country, untaxed. The government sees registration as a way to get a piece of that pie. They frame it as, leveling the playing field for local businesses who do pay taxes.
Though actually collecting that tax from global companies, that's probably easier said than done.
That's a whole other challenge, yes. But the motive is definitely there. Then, number 3 is national security concerns. This is a classic justification.
Fake news, propaganda.
Precisely. The argument is that unregulated platforms are breeding grounds for fake news, propaganda, stuff that could incite violence or ethnic conflict. So, with registration, the idea is they can force platforms to take down harmful content quickly. It's about stability, from their perspective.
And let's be honest, social media is where people organize, where they criticize the government. That must factor in.
Oh, undoubtedly. That's a big one. Political control. Social media is incredibly powerful for mobilizing protests, for amplifying voices that oppose the government.
So this gives them more oversight.
It certainly allows for more ability to monitor dissent, maybe chill online criticism. The government might frame it as, maintaining public order, but control over the narrative is definitely part of the calculation.
I've also heard arguments about sort of cultural protection, protecting kids from bad content.
Yes, that's the 5th angle. Cultural and social justification. The argument goes that these unrestricted platforms spread harmful or immoral content, violence, porn, drug stuff that negatively impacts young people.
And that plays well with certain groups.
It resonates with more conservative parts of society, absolutely. It helps build public support for tighter controls.
And finally, are they just looking around at other countries doing similar things?
For sure. That's the 6th point, international precedents. Nepal isn't acting in a vacuum here. They're seeing countries like India, Pakistan, China, Indonesia putting similar rules in place, demanding registration from foreign platforms.
Kind of asserting digital sovereignty.
Exactly. It's basically saying, you operate here, you follow our rules.
Right.
So yeah, when you put it all together, the main drivers seem to be control both political and regulatory, getting legal jurisdiction, chasing potential tax money, and managing the online narrative. It's fundamentally about the government asserting its authority in the digital space, even if it causes other problems.
Okay, so the government has its reasons, backed by the courts, but here's where it gets really interesting, and maybe concerning, the ripple effects. How is this actually hitting everyday Nepalists, their businesses, their lives?
Yeah, the impacts are huge, and yeah, very immediate for a lot of people.
Let's start with the economy, businesses.
It's causing a massive economic shock to businesses, especially small ones. You mentioned it earlier, something like half of Nepal's businesses, around 923,000, operate informally.
Wow, half.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the economy, maybe 38% of GDP. And so many of them rely heavily, sometimes entirely, on Facebook, Instagram, maybe WhatsApp for marketing, talking to customers, even making sales.
So blocking those platforms.
It's devastating. It cuts off their main channel to the market overnight. We're talking significant economic loss, potential job cuts. It just stalls growth for this really vital part of the economy.
And what about individuals? The content creators, the freelancers who built their livelihoods online.
It's a direct hit for them too. A huge loss of income for content creators and freelancers. Think about Nepali YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagrammers. Many earn good money through monetization. That income, poof, gone.
Just like that.
Just like that. And freelancers using sites like LinkedIn to find global clients, their opportunities shrink dramatically. It basically shuts down a whole section of the burgeoning digital economy.
This must also put immense pressure on the internet itself, the actual infrastructure.
Absolutely. Think about this. Over 80% of Nepal's domestic internet bandwidth is used just for social media.
80%.
80. So if everyone suddenly starts using VPNs, virtual private networks, to get around the blocks,
Which they will.
which they almost certainly will, then international bandwidth usage is going to skyrocket. That puts a massive strain on the existing infrastructure. It means slower speeds, more lag, just a worse internet experience for everyone.
And VPNs, especially the free ones people might turn to, they carry their own risks.
Exactly. That's another big concern. Increased cybersecurity and privacy risks. When people jump onto free or untrusted VPNs, they're vulnerable. These services might log your activity, steal passwords, even inject malware.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it significantly increases exposure to cybercrime. And because VPNs anonymize traffic, It actually makes it harder to track genuinely malicious actors online. So it's a real security headache.
Beyond the tech and the economy, what about the human cost? The emotional side?
This is huge, and maybe the most painful part for many, the emotional and social disruptions.
Yeah.
Millions of Nepalists work abroad.
Right. Sending money home, supporting families.
Exactly. And how do they stay connected? Messenger, WhatsApp, Facebook calls. These aren't luxuries, they're lifelines. Blocking these apps cuts those vital connections. It can lead to immense emotional strain, isolation, depression. It weakens family bonds that are already stretched so thin.
And for public discussion, for journalism, these platforms are crucial there too.
Absolutely critical. It represents a major curtailment of freedom of expression and press. Social media is where so much civic discourse happens now. It's how local news gets out, how marginalized groups find a voice.
So blocking it.
It directly curbs public debate. It makes it harder for journalists to report and share information. Organizations like the Committee to Protect Journalists are already sounding the alarm about the impact on press freedom. It's serious.
This whole thing seems to fly in the face of Nepal's own goals for becoming more digital.
It really does. It causes significant damage to digital transformation ambitions. Nepal has this whole Digital Nepal framework aiming to boost ICT, improve digital services. A blanket ban like this, it completely undermines that.
Sends the wrong message.
Totally the wrong message. It shakes investor confidence, makes tech companies wary, and basically signals that Nepal isn't truly open for digital business or innovation. It could really stall progress.
And how are the big tech companies themselves likely to react? Meta, Google, etc.
Well, there's a definite risk of diplomatic and regulatory fallout. These global giants aren't likely to just accept a unilateral ban without pushback. It could lead to friction, complicate future investments in Nepal's tech sector, maybe hinder partnerships needed for digital growth. It potentially isolates Nepal from the global tech ecosystem.
This raises an important question, though. Despite all the government's planning and legal backing, how could this whole strategy actually backfire on them?
Yeah, that's the fascinating paradox, isn't it? When you try to exert this much control, it can slip through your fingers in other ways. First off, there's the inevitable economic backlash.
People getting angry about lost jobs and income.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Small businesses suffer, digital entrepreneurs lose their livelihoods, incomes drop. That anger gets directed straight at the government, especially among young people who might already be thinking about leaving the country. The government risks being seen as the ones killing opportunities.
And if people feel they're being silenced politically,
That leads to a political cost, for sure. When you shut down major platforms for discussion and organization, people don't just go quiet. It can be perceived as outright oppression.
fueling protests.
It can easily fuel protests, strengthen opposition parties, and make the government look authoritarian, both at home and abroad.
Which touches on Nepal's international image.
Right, there's a real risk to Nepal's international image and diplomacy. Nepal likes to position itself as a democracy. Widespread internet censorship doesn't fit that picture.
So condemnation from rights groups.
You'd expect condemnation from rights groups, negative press internationally. It could damage diplomatic relationships and make foreign investors think twice, especially in the tech sector. It signals instability or unpredictability.
And domestically, what does it do to the trust between the government and the people?
It erodes it. A potential loss of trust from citizens is a huge risk. If people feel their fundamental rights to connect and express themselves are being taken away, their faith in institutions plummets. They might see the government as prioritizing its own control over their well-being and freedom. That weakens legitimacy.
It also seems like technically people will just find ways around it, right? Like the VPNs we talked about.
You hit the nail on the head. That leads to underground workarounds. People will use VPNs, proxy servers, maybe shift to less common encrypted apps. The ban becomes less effective in practice.
And ironically, the government loses visibility.
Exactly. Instead of gaining control, they might actually lose visibility into online activities because so much traffic becomes anonymized or moves to platforms they can't easily monitor. Plus, as we said, it creates new security risks for users.
What about the impact on skilled workers, the tech talent?
That's another potential backfire. Brain drain acceleration. If you're a content creator, a software developer, a digital freelancer, and suddenly your tools and access to the global market are cut off,
You might look elsewhere.
you're definitely going to consider leaving. This could speed up the migration of skilled young people, which is already a challenge for Nepal, further depleting the country's talent pool.
And finally, it just seems so at odds with their own long-term vision for the country.
It absolutely is. It's a massive contradiction with the digital Nepal vision. The government has spent time and resources promoting this framework, talking about digital literacy, wanting to grow the IT sector.
And then they do this.
And then they implement a policy that screams, Nepal is closed for digital business, not open. It undermines their own strategy, confuses investors, and likely stalls the very innovation they claim to want.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now as we try to wrap our heads around this?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what's happening in Nepal is, is a really potent example of this global tension, isn't it?
Between government control and digital freedom.
Exactly. That push-pull between a government wanting security, order, maybe revenue, and a society needing connection, economic opportunity, and the freedom to speak online. We've seen the legal justifications, the complex motives, the very real human impacts, and, crucially, how these big policy moves can ripple outwards in ways maybe nobody fully intended.
And it's not just Nepal facing this.
Not at all. These are questions countries everywhere are wrestling with. How do you govern the internet?
That really is the vital point. As you reflect on Nepal's situation, maybe the question to ponder is this. When does a government's attempt to grab hold of the digital reins actually cause it to lose control in other ways, through lost trust, economic damage, or people just finding workarounds? How do we, as citizens, as a global community, find that balance? A balance that allows for both reasonable governance and the incredible opportunities the digital world offers. It's a tough question, but one that affects all of us now. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Nepal's social media crossroads. We hope this gave you a clearer picture of the very complex situation unfolding.